To sew the backstitch seam, you're going to need 2 pieces of your pattern with the seam allowance drawn on, a single threaded needle, and some pins. So we're going to start out prepping this just like we would any other straight seam. For some reason my fabric really wants to be curly. So I'll line everything up and pin it on the stitch line. Checking to make sure that both sides are on the line, just like always. And then one more. Okay, so I'm actually going to rotate this first pin to get it slightly out of my way, but still hold the fabric together. So you're going to start just kind of like you would any other normal stitch. You're going to start on one end with your knot in your thread and take 1 stitch forward, just like this. Now here's the part that makes this a back stitch. On one side of your fabric, the stitches are going to look one way, and on the other side, they're going to look more like machine stitches. So what we're going to do is, my thread is coming out right here. I want to go back behind that thread and go in and go out past that center thread. Can you see that? So this is where I came out before. My needle's gone in behind that and it's extending out past it. So this is why it's called a back stitch, not to be confused with the back stitch that we do on the sewing machine. So once you get that started, you can see you've got 1 stitch right here. Now you want to go back in right next to that last stitch. This is what makes it look like a sewing machine, is you're going to go back to where the last stitch was, come out past your tail. I'm going to do a couple of these stitches and then I'll show you what the back side looks like. It's great if you can keep all of your stitches exactly the same length. It can be quite tricky to do so, especially as a beginner. So I'm not as worried about how perfectly spaced your stitches are as I am that you have done the technique correctly. You're going to go in, out past the tail, just like this. So you can see how on this side, it's beginning to look a bit like machine stitching because all of these stitches are back right up against each other. Now, if we flip this over, you can actually tell that the stitches overlap on this side. This is one of the ways you know that this is a back stitch, is if it looks like this on one side and more like machine stitches on the other side. A back stitch is a really great and strong hand sewing stitch. Though we sew everything in theater for the most part when we're constructing a garment by machine, unless it requires hand finishing techniques, we're never sewing any of the construction seams by hand. But if you ever wanted to sew a garment completely by hand, this is the stitch you would use on your construction seams, the parts that actually hold the big chunks of fabric together. You would not, don't use this on a hem, or you can use it for applying trim. It is pretty strong for that. I would usually apply trim with a catch stitch if I could. Just kind of depends, or a running stitch. But if you were to sew a garment by hand, this is the stitch that the bulk of your garment will be comprised of, because it's really strong and sturdy and you're not going to have any kind of weird gaps when you pull this apart there. Now, the spacing that I'm doing for these stitches, way too far apart to hold a garment together by hand. But there are times that you do want to sew something with a back stitch. And so this length is sufficient for that. And you just keep going all the way down. And since we pinned our line together, theoretically, if we look at this other side, yep, we're exactly on the line on this side as well. Once you get the hang of where your needle has to go in and come back out of the fabric, this one does come together fairly quickly. Not quite as fast as the running stitch, but certainly faster than something like the slip stitch. If you are concerned about making sure that all of the stitches on this side are of equal length, then you want to watch and make sure that the point where your needle goes in and comes back out from the tail is exactly the same length. So the distance between here and here, I want that to be the same distance between here and here in order to make sure that they're all the same size. Coming up on the end here, and I'm going to take one back stitch and then come right back out exactly where my tail is to finish this off and make it nice and clean and have my knot on this side. Do this style of knot this time. I'm trying to alternate what kind of knot I do for all of these videos so that it's not the same thing every time, and you can observe me doing both. All right, trim my threads. So this is what the back stitch looks like on one side. It looks like machine stitching. And then on the other side, you can see how it is overlapped with each other. That's the back stitch.